Well, what games are you excited for the remainder of the year?
So the games I would say, the first one, it's Forspoken, and here's the reason for
Ooh,
Forspoken. Forspoken needs to succeed for the culture, man. Forspoken, no lie, is
I
the
agree.
game that we've been wanting for so long. Like we've talked about this before in the Discord that it has like we've wanted like a JRPG with black characters. And when JRPGs when they have black characters, they're kind of like just that one character, or it's kind of like stereotypes that come into play, kind of like Barret with Final Fantasy VII. Like Barret is a cool character, don't get me wrong, but there are some stereotypes that come into play.
And
More
we all
so,
know that.
yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, more so
good.
in the OG Final Fantasy VII than the new one. The new one, I think they did a pretty good job about kind of addressing those aspects and kind of changing his character up a little bit. But yeah, the fact that this is a world that has black characters, a black female protagonist, not just a black, not a black male protagonist, but a black female protagonist. I mean, that's great that that sort of thing is happening, and it's a AAA RPG is being done by Square of all companies. It's like this is the moment. This needs to be a good game, and I hope it's a good game. And the fact that they delayed it, I'm I'm hoping that that means that they're really trying to up the quality. That they're not trying to make it a cookie cutter game, because the stuff that we've seen, is some of it has been a little bit rough with the. There've been like some frame drops in some of the gameplay videos. It doesn't look the smoothest. The powers and the movement in the game, like the traversal, it looks really good. So I'm just hoping that Square is just taking the time to kind of tighten some things up. It reminds me a lot of Control. Control was one of my favorite games of
Yeah.
last generation.
Hmm.
I think it
Right.
was underappreciated and a game that I think a lot of people should try. It reminds me of that in terms of how the powers in the game work, and like you have this protagonist that has this ability to control, like in Control, she has kind of like telekinesis, so she can have like shields and like throw like stuff from across the room. She can fly, stuff like that. And there's some of those things that are in Forspoken, but it's a bit more like elemental based, like elemental and magic based. And I just can't wait to see how it turns out. So it's one of those games where I'm crossing my fingers and crossing my toes. Like I'm hoping for the best. I'm praying that Square doesn't screw it up, because I think it's a game that will just be great for just black RPG fans. It's kind of like what Black Panther did for black people in regards to superhero movies. I think that this game, if it's good, I think it could not to that level, of course, but I think it could be a landmark and show that yes, we want these type of games, we want these type of protagonists in these kind of games. We need to see more of it, because I mean, we could do an episode on its own about how black people are ignored in fantasy, but yeah, I'm not gonna dive into that
Ooh,
because that's definitely a subject
ooh,
all on its own.
man,
But
that's a ooh.
yeah, that's a big one right there. My second game, like Will mentioned, is DNF Duel, Dungeon Fighters. Well, Dungeon Fighters Duel. Yeah, it's.
Hmm.
I'm not gonna go too much into it just because Will already gave the synopsis on it. But I played the first beta, skipped the second beta just because for me the first beta was enough. Like that gave me enough of a good impression to where I would definitely want to play the game. I will say right now, I just want to see what that single player content is gonna look like. Like what kind of single player modes are we going to get? Because it reminds me a lot of Grand Blue, and Grand Blue I think did a pretty good job when it came out. Like it had its little RPG mode. There's some gripes that I have with it, but you can't complain about it having like a lack of like single player content, because it was definitely there. I'm curious if they'll take the MMO beat 'em up aspect of the original game and kind of put it in this one and kind of tailor it to the way this game is being done. So I'm
That'd be
just
dope.
interested to see how the game develops going into June. So I will more than likely buy it, but I definitely want to see what the rest of the content is going to be outside of fighting. And the last game for me, this might be a surprise, is Grand Blue Fantasy Relink. And if it comes out
Oh
this year, it's supposed
man,
to come out this year, but we'll see. It's been kind
good
of
choice.
silent, but I
Yeah.
like the Grand Blue universe. I just mentioned Grand Blue Fantasy Versus. I didn't get into the mobile game, but when they announced Grand Blue Fantasy Versus, I was like, first off, this game looks beautiful, and all the characters look really
Hmm.
interesting. And after buying Grand Blue Fantasy Versus, I really got into it. Like I've started to learn more about the lore of the game and everything, and that universe is amazing. And I can't
You
wait to
try out the
see.
anime?
Um, I tried a little bit of the anime. I don't know. I heard the anime, the its synopsis of the story isn't the best, but I haven't watched all of it, so I can't really like make a full opinion on it. But the Relink, I'm looking forward to, just because if it takes like the mobile game and just makes it like a full-fledged console RPG, I'm all for that. That would be amazing. I don't know if it's doing that or doing something similar to it. What is it doing exactly? Do you know?
It's basically like a side story. Like this is them going to like an island. It's like a mega island, like bigger than the normal islands, and they have their own unique adventure. That, at least as far as like when I looked it up, that was like the plan as of like a few months ago. But you know they keep shifting shit because at one point Gran and what's the chick's name?
Digita.
Yeah, Gron and Jeter weren't even in the game, and then all of a sudden they're like, "Yep, they're in. Fuck it." So they might have just went ahead and made it like an adaptation of the mobile game. But the last time I checked, it was like an original story.
Okay, well, yeah, I mean that's fine if that's the case.
Whichever one, you know.
Yeah, and my thing is, there is some concern just because originally it was being developed by Platinum, and then it switched over to just being done in-house by Side Games. So there is a little concern there because, you know, we hadn't really seen much of it since then. Not really, but I'm hopeful. I'm hoping if it is good, I'll definitely pick it up. If it isn't, well, I mean, it'll just sit in the bargain bin and maybe be one of those games. If it's like a 7 out of 10 game, then, you know, wait for it to go on sale, maybe check it out. But if it's like an 8 or a 9 out of 10, hope like this is a big hope, like it being a 9 out of 10 kind of game, then yeah, I'll definitely run and get it. But even if it's like a 7 or 8 out of 10, I would definitely I would go pick it up just because I really like the world, and as long as the combat is good and the story is solid, then I'll enjoy it. You know, not every game needs to blow your pants off to be a good time. So I wouldn't mind. I definitely am looking forward to seeing how it develops. And just a quick honorable mention is Multiverses, the WB game where they're having a clash of all WB properties. That's going to be crazy, especially since it's free to play. It's like, why not? So it looks good, and man, the possibilities are endless. Right now, just even with the roster they've given us right now, it's wild to see all these WB properties mixed together like this. And considering all the properties that WB owns, the possibilities are vast. So I'm looking forward to that. So those are my 3 games. If there's one game that I say I'm the most hyped for, probably Forspoken, just because I want that game to be good. I want it to be the game that people maybe had doubts at first, but then it comes out and it's like, oh, this is the real deal. I just think it needs, I'm hoping that it's that game. And if it isn't, it'll be really unfortunate. I'll put it that way.